A man used this rock doorstopper for years, until a scientist told him the truth. Wouldn't it be nice if that old portrait you picked from that yard sale 10 years ago turned out to be a priceless work of art? Or if those tchotchkes your great-grandma handed down to you were worth a small fortune? Everyone dreams of the seemingly worthless things sitting around their homes, making them a millionaire. And for some, this dream may actually come true. For 30 years, one Michigan man believed that the doorstop keeping his backyard shed ajar was nothing more than a large, worthless stone. But after getting an expert opinion, he learned that there was much more to this simple rock than met the eye, and that he was about to become a very rich man. Most home buyers are pretty adamant about checking out a property before buying, and David Mazurik was no different. Sure, the Edmore, Michigan farm he was looking to purchase back in 1988 wasn't exactly brand new, but Mazurik still wanted to know exactly what he was getting himself into. As the property's owner led him on a tour of the farm, Mazurik noticed a large stone propping open the door of the back shed. Mazurik thought nothing of it at first, yet as the tour continued, he just couldn't shake the odd-looking rock from his mind. Finally, Mazurik had to ask, what in the world was that thing? It was unlike any rock or stone he'd ever seen before. That's when the farmer revealed it wasn't of this world at all. According to the farmer, he'd actually seen the rock fall from the night sky as a child back in the 1930s. Eager to recover the space stone, he and his father had trekked out to the fields the next morning to see if they could locate it. Jutting from a large crater in the earth, the stone was still hot to the touch as the farmer and his father pulled it from the dirt. Neither of them had ever seen anything like it before, though. Given its weight, they figured it'd be best used as a doorstop. The farmer's story was believable enough, but even so, Mazurik wasn't entirely convinced. A meteorite as a doorstop? What a waste. Still, he was more than happy to take the stone when the farmer offered it to him along with the property. For the next 3 decades, Mazurik made the use of the rock in the only way he knew how, as a doorstop. Yet the unusual stone continued to marvel all those who saw it. And over the years, the children even brought it to school for show and tell. Finally, following a meteor shower in 2018, Mazurik began to wonder if the farmer's story might have been true after all. People all over Michigan were finding meteorites in their own backyards, though. They certainly weren't using them as doorstops. Not only were Michiganians turning these space rocks in for cash, but they were also making some pretty big bucks doing it too. Mazurik could only imagine what his doorstop might be worth. But there was still one glaring question he needed to answer first. Was this really a meteorite, or just an ugly rock? He contacted a friend who studied geology at Central Michigan University, who then led him to Dr. Mana Sebescu, a professor at CMU. Dr. Sebescu agreed to examine the stone, though she wasn't particularly optimistic about the outcome. Over the years, Dr. Sebescu had been approached hundreds of times about suspected meteorites, and 9 times out of 10, these extraterrestrial objects turned out to be just ordinary rocks. Yet, as soon as she laid eyes on Mazurik's stone, Dr. Sebescu knew she was dealing with something special. Holding it in her hands, the large rock had all the telltale signs of being a meteorite, though. It'd take more than just a physical examination to confirm her suspicions. Using X-ray fluorescence, Dr. Sebescu dove into the makeup of the stone. While Mazurik's doorstop was 88% iron, it also contained 12% nickel. Being that this metal is almost solely found on meteorites, Dr. Sebescu knew that this stone came from outer space. Weighing over 22 pounds, Mazurik's meteorite was now the 6th largest space stone of its kind to be recovered in Michigan. With a pedigree like this, Dr. Sebescu was confident that the rock could fetch a ton at auction. More specifically, she suggested it could be worth up to $100,000, but they were getting ahead of themselves here, and Dr. Sebescu didn't want to make any promises she couldn't keep. To be extra sure that this was truly a $100,000 meteorite, she sliced a piece of the rock and mailed it off to the Smithsonian for additional analysis. Geologist Catherine Corrigan was the first to examine the stone, and after a few tests, she could corroborate Dr. Sebescu's findings. But even with the meteorite's identity finally set in stone, what was to become of Mazurik's incredible find? According to Dr. Sebescu, he had 2 options: sell the stone to a museum or sell it to a private collector looking to turn a profit. Either way, Mazurik was determined to put the proceeds from the meteorite to good use. If he did decide to sell the stone, Mazurik vowed to donate 10% of the sale to CMU to provide further funding for geological studies. Regardless of the donation, however, Dr. Sebescu insisted that being able to study the meteorite was gift enough. Allowing her students to physically interact with the space rock gave them a unique perspective on the true nature of their studies. Just think, what I was holding is a piece of the early solar system that literally fell into our hands. Dr. Sebescu recalled. Mazurik's meteorite, now dubbed the Edmore meteorite, continues to be analyzed in the hope of discovering rarer elements within. But although meteorites are not an entirely uncommon sight here on Earth, one unusual stone once found on the moon had no earthly business being there at all.